Hello everyone and welcome to another hobby painting stream as we move into almost the end of the first half of the first day of Ministravaganza. Today we're going to be doing primary colors. If you watched our panel to play, Hulkbuster and Ms. Marvel, which kicked off our Ministravaganza programming, we're going to be painting Ms. Marvel right now on this stream. So I have both the big version and the little version. So let's just get right into it because we've only got an hour to do this and there's lots to do. So I'm going to put the brush on my mouth. Tony's hopefully going to move the camera off of me and onto our Kamala Khan. So I know the title of the stream is called Primary Colors, which would indicate that I'm going to be painting red, blue, and yellow, which would be her common costume colors. However, I'm not going to do that because BK is not the boss of me. And I thought it would be really fun instead to do a little bit of an homage to the classic Carol Danvers Ms. Marvel, which means that we're going to be doing the tunic or the suit black. There's a specific name for this because I think it's a Muslim swimsuit, I believe, or it's based on that anyway. And it has a very specific name, but I can't remember the name of it right now. Anyway, we're going to paint that black. We're going to do the boots black. We're going to do the undersuit, I think red, which will kind of call back to her traditional color styles. But I think doing this will make a really nice kind of homage to the classic Ms. Marvel when before Carol became Captain Marvel. And we should get some really nice striking colors. And because they're going to be using this Ms. Marvel alongside Hulkbuster, who I painted on the last couple of normal atomic mass transmissions, having her in the black kind of suit with the red, I think will pair really nicely with the Hulkbuster, which we did in the Iron Man Marvel Now stealth suit kind of colors with the black and the gold. So we'll get a little bit of a cohesive look going on to our squad for the game stream that's going to be played on Saturday. And of course, if you wanted to do your Ms. Marvel in the classic blue, it's pretty easy. You just simply grab a primary blue. For example, I would probably use Amroth blue from the scale 75 range. Turn that into a wash, put it over my Zenith Prime, and then go from there. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually undertoning my black. So this blue is obviously not the way that I want it to be in the final form. But because I'm going to be using a lot of washing and glazing, which I saw Dallas was using a lot on his Into the Underworld stream right before we started here. I want to make sure that I'm tinting the undersurface because those washes and glazes have transparency to them. So by putting an undertone on, like I've done here, which I used Innsmouth blue, I use this color, and I just thinned it out with some mixing medium and some water to turn it into a wash. By doing that undertone, as I apply my black wash over top, I'm going to actually see the black wash pool in the recesses and turn that black. And then as it stretches and transparencies over the blue, it's actually going to meld those two colors together because it's like taking layers of cellophane, like tinted plastic, and putting them on top of one another. So as you stack those, the colors are going to kind of show through and they're going to naturally blend together. So I'm going to get a really nice effect on my costume with not a whole lot of effort. I'm going to move on to the red undersuit though, because I'm going to keep that because I think the red and the black will look nice. So I'm going to be using the Model Air Red, which I use a lot for doing this. It's basically just a primary red paint, but it's been thinned for airbrush use. So it does come out of the bottle kind of like a high contrast wash. And it works really nicely over the Zenith Prime to create a really nice, robust red with very minimal effort. And one of the things I'm going to have to do after I finish this red is I'm going to need to go back, probably clean up my slop, because I just got it everywhere because I thinned it out a lot. That's okay. And then we're going to do normal Ms. Marvel so that we get all of our colors to be accurate. And we're just kind of going to assembly line both of them together, and we're going to see if we can get each of these characters tabletop ready in the hour that we have to spend together. So I hope everybody's been having fun and enjoying everything. It's nice to be back in the studio and not in the laundry room. I've got Tony, my wingman, taking care of everything. He's got robot cams. He can move the camera around. He can zoom in and out. He's got all the power. So even if I get off camera, he can just chase me down. If I come like way over here, he can follow me. Oh! It's like a chase scene. But I'll do my best not to force him to stay on the joystick. Tony's on the stick. That's amazing. You're like a fighter pilot, Tony. This is the best.
High school dream.
I know, it's been so long since I've had anybody hanging out with me on stream to like mess around with. This is great. It's back to true form. Okay, so again, we're just kind of using this as a wash. We're just tinting everything down. We may need to go back over just one more time to get a bit more of a robust color, but we'll play with that as we see how it dries. Remember, you can always add extra layers or extra coats, but you can't remove coats from a miniature, so it's always better to start with a smooth, thin layer and then continue to build from there. So, does Holder Blue? So Holder Blue does not know because Holder Blue wasn't here. Because we're back in the studio, this isn't my normal paint setup, and I have what I thought was the entire fantasy line from Scale, and it turns out that I don't, because as Tony can attest, right before this, I was kind of yelling about where my Holder Blue had gone to. I think Dallas actually took it and has it in the other studio because we've split. We're running 2 different stream locations right now because we have so much Ministravaganza goodness that I imagine that he took it, and I just didn't notice that it was missing until right before this. But Innsmouth Blue, it's a good blue. It's a fine blue. It will take care of us. And, you know, sometimes you got to branch out, try different things. That's what we're here for. That's what we're doing. So, all right. So with that going on, I want to get this up here. I don't want to miss that. I do have to be careful. So when you're working with like thin glazes or washes like this, you do have to be careful that you don't overwork the section, because as that glaze starts to dry, if you put more paint on a section that's like halfway through its dry time, it will pull up the paint, and that will leave kind of a mess for you to try to fix. You can do it, but it is hard because you mess with that acrylic layer that goes down. So it's best to try to not overwork. If you do miss a spot, just leave it, come back to it later if you're not sure if the paint is still in a spot where you can do kind of a wetness with it. All things to consider. Things will be announced during tomorrow's Dev and Design panel for Marvel Crisis Protocol. I hope so. I was told that's what we're here for, to announce and then show off stuff. So we just revealed all of the super sweet rules and kind of the design and development process, as well as the sculpting process for Hulkbuster and Ms. Marvel. Hence why we are painting one Ms. Marvel right now, because we haven't had a chance to do that on the Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. And she will be heading out with Tony Stark in his Hulkbuster armor for their first inaugural game on stream, featuring one William Pagani and Josh Colon, going head-to-head on Saturday. So that's going to be a fun match to watch. I'm excited to see how they do. Dallas is going to be working on some pretty cool stuff that hasn't been revealed yet, but we're going to be showing that off. So there's so much more of Ministravaganza to come. If you haven't seen the things that your heart hoped for, you know, there's still time. Maybe some more cool stuff will happen. You never know. We do have a little bit of a break after this. Like I said, this is the last part of the first half of the day one of Ministravaganza. So we will be taking a break. We'll be back at 4 p.m. Pacific with our big X-Wing panel, I believe, but BK can correct me if I am off on my time. I don't have the schedule right in front of me. And then there's plenty more good stuff to go for today. We're going to wrap up with a little after-party action, some hangout, so you can come see the whole team. We're going to be having fun painting and just chilling after the day, and then we'll get ready to kick off tomorrow. And again, as BK mentioned in the chat, there's going to be a really huge cool dev and design and preview panel that's going to reveal all of the cool stuff that's coming next. I don't think you'll want to miss it. Put it on your calendars. It should be very exciting if you play Marvel Crisis Protocol. And of course, we've got more stuff for all of the other games coming too, and plenty more great hobby content. We got a lot of things to paint and stuff to show off. It's gonna be good. All right, so just getting the rest of this scarf here. And honestly, as we do this, you can kind of see that we are in primary colors, so BK can't get that mad at me because we've got our blue, we've got our red, we've got a very classic, iconic color going on. We're going to switch out. We're going to tiny, little wee normal Camilla, looking all sharp and snazzy. And we're just going to follow the exact same process here, but hopefully it'll take us a little less time because she is quite a bit less area to paint. We're just going to knock in those blue undertones, which we'll go ahead and go back over for the blacks. I think we're going to do the, so there's there's always a debate when it comes to how yellows and golds are portrayed. Obviously in comic books, golds are typically colored as yellows because you can't do metallic paint. In a comic book page, I always liked the interpretations where the symbol, the Marvel symbol, was gold. So I think instead of doing yellow, I am going to do metallic gold. I think it'll set off really nicely against that black as well. So we're going to do that. So I'm not going to technically paint the primary color yellow. So I can't give BK everything he wants. That would just be too much. We're just going to knock in this quick transparent glaze. And the other nice thing about this is that you don't have to be particularly precious about putting on undertones, because if they are a little splotchy or uneven, somewhat like Dallas was talking about when you're doing armor panel blending, the more natural mess you can make, or you do make, it adds life to the material. It makes it feel slightly more real, and it's the same thing with this undertoning here. I did realize that I forgot the boots on the embiggened version, so I guess we'll go back. But this is why it's great to work on both. So we'll keep going. Knock this stuff in. And just keep rocking and rolling. And I am trying to keep up with the chat a little bit, but I'm also really committed to painting these two characters in about an hour. But if I run out of time, I think I can come back to them on one of tomorrow. Tomorrow we have our little Marvel hangout. Tonight we're going to be painting some Star Wars stuff. I got a whole bunch of things in my box to work on for that. It's going to be pretty fun. Switch back. Whoop. Might paint my ISP, my little swamp speeder for my clones. That'd be pretty ambitious, but it could be fun. All right, so again, we're just gonna be a little careful around that red because it's still probably a little wet. But you can see how by using just that Zenith Prime and that nice red airbrush paint as kind of a transparency wash, our reds are basically done, especially for like a tabletop level or anything like that. You know, the goal of whenever we do these streams, I really like to show, hey, you know, if you just want to, if you only have like an hour, you're busy. I got kids, they're back in school. They got after school activities. We got fall ball, we got jujitsu, we've got all this stuff. You know, I make a point to try to get up in the morning and take an hour before I kind of start my day at work and just hobby, you know. And sometimes that means that I get 20 minutes of painting in because of everything else that kind of slows me down. Or I hit the snooze alarm a couple of times. Sometimes it means I get a full hour. Sometimes I'm like ready and raring to go and I get 90 minutes. It doesn't really matter. The thing with any skill, with anything that you do, is even that 0.01%, it exponentially grows by huge volumes. There's a great post I saw the other day where the mathematician was like, 1 to the 365th power is 1, but 1.01 to the 365th power is like 37% or something crazy. So the tiniest of effort, I mean, it will pay off huge dividends. It will make a big difference. And that's so true of the hobbies you build your skills. So just dive in and do the work and make it all go. Okay, so with that, I'm going to switch back over. I want to do the reds on the little Camella. Yeah, and don't time yourself, right? Like, that's the other big thing is it's not a race. You're not competing with anyone. Take your time, as much time as you want, and enjoy the process. And if you stop enjoying it, walk away and do something else. Come back later. Doing the hobby and painting is supposed to be, like, it's fun. It's one of the things you get to do. Don't force yourself into it, though. There are days I definitely don't feel like painting or painting as much. Like I said, sometimes it's 20 minutes in the morning. Sometimes it's the full hour. Sometimes it's longer. Sometimes I get to come back to it later at night because I'm really inspired or really chomping at the bit to get something done, and I'll keep working at it. There's no time schedule but the one you set yourself. It's not like you have to get something done ever unless you challenge yourself to go to, say, an event at your store, something you want to play fully painted, which is amazing. That's always, in my opinion, the best way to play. And that can be a great motivator to kind of like hunker down and get the work done. And hopefully, between the streams that we all show, Dallas, myself, we really try to show techniques and ways to paint that you can use as a baseline. You can do this washing technique, and honestly, we could just slap some yellow on Camella's like symbol here in the center using the same glazing techniques. Put on the gold for the bangles that she wears, and then do some quick skin work and get the hair colored, and we could call this ready to go for the tabletop. Don't even touch the blue again. Don't touch the red again. She's going to look awesome during play. There's some nice highlights and shades just from the Zenith Prime working its magic, and you'd be ready to go. So again, it's all about, yeah, this is exactly right. Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Oh, I love that phrase as well. I just stumbled across that not too long ago. It's like that thing where you haven't seen a commercial or something and somebody tells you about it and then it shows up everywhere. I love those moments. Like, I didn't know this thing existed. Now I can't stop seeing it. Do it poorly, right? Don't make yourself have to be the best at everything. Don't think about, well, I have to monetize this. I think that's such a mistake that everyone looks at when it comes to like art and hobby and all this stuff. Not everything has to be, you don't have to be like, oh, I could be a professional at this. That's so not the point of creative endeavors or like relaxation things or hobby things. If you have fun and enjoy it, then that's all that matters. That is the point. So do it poorly. Eventually you won't do it poorly. Go, walk a mile every day, and eventually that walk is going to take you less and less time, and it's going to make you less and less tired and all of that stuff. You're going to see that incremental increase in skill and ability and all of that, and it's going to happen a lot faster than you want. But instead of worrying about going, I'm going to go from 0 to 100, just go from 0 to like 5, 0 to 2. I mean, literally 0 to 1. And doing a 1 increment each day, by the end of the year, 365. That's a heck of a lot. So that's like so much of what's there. Okay, this is looking great. I'm very happy with this. Again, if we wanted to kind of do just the classic like comic book colors, we could slap the yellow on the chest symbol and then finish out the skin and we'd be good. But we're going to go in and we're going to do black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some Decay Black. I'm going to grab some Mixing Medium, and I'm going to create a quick wash for this. And I'm going to thin that out with a little bit of water, a little bit of medium. Where'd my medium go? Here we go. And then we're just going to kind of like work this over the blues, and we want this again to mostly shade into the recesses of the mini, because black, as those of you who have joined us for streams before, is a color that is defined by its highlights. So whenever you look at blacks in the real world, or you want to make like really compelling blacks, what you actually need to ask yourself first is, what is my highlight going to be? What type of black is it? And the thing I really like about black is that you can make your black any color you want. So it can be a purple black, it can be a green black, a blue black. I typically gravitate towards blue-black because I think it works. It's like the easiest one to do in a very quick step like we're doing here. And of course, Hold Your Blue is my sponsor, so I do have to, I have a minimum quota when it's on my palette to use. But overall, you can do this exact same technique if you wanted a purple-black, say for like a Venom or something. You could absolutely use this exact same technique, and instead of doing the blue undertone, just hit it with like a purple or magenta undertone, and you'd be ready to go right away. So we're just going to carefully put this around the symbol. I'm going to do my best to avoid hitting the symbol on the chest. Because I'm painting it gold, it probably won't matter as much as if I was painting it yellow, but obviously the more care and the more practice you can get with your brush control, the better off you'll be. It's just kind of like one of those skill progressions, so if you do have the chance to kind of mess with it or to practice something, you might as well take it, whether it matters or not. Just come in and hit this boot with the black. The other boot with the black, and then as that dries, we can move on to our next step. So, gray-black is fine. I mean, in the end, I think the thing that you have to remember is that it doesn't take a lot of black in the shadows to make whatever the color is read as black. And yeah, it just kind of depends. To be fair, if you like that neutral kind of gray-black, then that's a very easy and quick one to accomplish. And if you wanted to do that here, all you do is you just skip the undertone layers and apply your black wash over the gray. We'll let that dry and we'll come back to it, because if I try to mess with it again right now, it's going to make problems. But you just put it over your Zenith Prime, not undertone it, and then you would have yourself a nice like gray-black. But the thing is again, a lot of this kind of technique in painting is just playing with the mistakes, quote unquote, that happen as you apply these washes. Because you can just kind of like call it good and be like, okay, well, I'm happy with this. We've got highlights, we've got shades, like all these tones, we've got some nice contrast going on. We're going to be done. But the best part about painting and the hobby in general is that, so we try to do everything within an hour, or at least I do. Try to get like a tabletop ready miniature in an hour. And then what's really fun to do is on the times where we get to come back and do another session for an hour, and we're like, okay, well, this is what we're starting with. Now, how do we take it to that next level? How do we add a little extra shading or a little extra highlighting to it and pull it into something that then becomes like even better than what we started with? And that's, again, that progression of skill and method that becomes really important as well. And part of the joy of the hobby is that journey of learning how to do all that and to make it work really well. So again, we're just going to come over here, going. Hold Your Blue is an incredible paint. That's right, Stream. There are just those paints and lines that you find, and this goes back to kind of like something we talk about where don't limit yourself in your tools. Try everything. Try different things, explore, experiment, and create your stable of tools that you like. And don't stop yourself from exploring new things. There's so many great acrylics, there are oils, there are weathering pigments, there's great resources, there's all kinds of different techniques and stuff that you can do. And you got to start learning them somewhere, but once you learn the technique, then turn it into your own, apply it. And that's kind of the fun. There's really no wrong way to paint. My favorite artist thing that I've ever heard from the folks who, do the art for a living is that the rules of art are there so you know how to break them. And I like that mentality, right? You got to learn the rules, but the reason that you're learning the rules is so that you know how to break them. Tony keeps opening and closing the door like all creepily on me right now because he's dealing with stuff, and every time I have to look and be like, what is he doing? Mostly I'm waiting for him to tell me that something went horribly wrong. Like, you haven't been on live the whole time. I'd be like, well, this was a great little time we spent together, Tony. I'm happy that you and I got to spend this time together. All right, so okay, so we got that black layer in, and we're definitely going to want to do another application because it's pretty thin. But again, we want to start small and continue to move up. So we're going to let that dry, and I think we're going to really quick before. It looks like I missed this girl's shoulders. Ooh, that's a little thick. We'll just kind of like spread that out just a little bit. There. Okay, so we'll come back in and we'll mess with those a bit more. I'm going to move on to, let's just do the skin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a couple of different colors, and we're just going to mix some stuff. So we're going to use some Bosch chestnut. We're going to use some of this harvester flesh. Why not? And then we'll probably use maybe some peanut butter. I think that's what that color is called. Where is it? Black heart, cocoa copper. Oh, that could work. All right. Well, I don't see that color. We're just going to mess around. We're just going to make it work. And again, we're going to turn this into a little bit of a wash. Adding a little water to it. And we're just going to start building this out. Have I ever broken a miniature that I found a way to turn? Like, in what way? Because I do break things all the time. So, rules-wise, you know, we get to go through an iterative process on that. Hobby-wise, I actually, what did I just finish? Oh, I had just finished painting my hood, my non-possessed hood the other day, and I was trying to pull him off my thing here, my little like hand holder, my paint cap, and he was really stuck. And for some reason, instead of stopping myself like I should have, I forced it, and my big old gorilla hand like crushed him. And so I snapped his leg. I snapped the pistol he's holding high, the hex pistol that's like held up. The pieces went flying all over the place, and I was like, oh no, that's so bad. So I did manage to track down all of the parts. It took probably a good 20 minutes. And then I was able to successfully glue all of the parts back together because hard plastic is a forgiving friend, and using a little bit of plastic glue, I was able to fuse the parts back together with some care and practice. And then all I had to do was go back through and fix where the break areas were, where the paint had fallen off. It was not my favorite time. It was not my favorite way to spend a hobby time, for sure. I was very mad with myself, and I was really proud. I was like, as I was trying to take him off of the thing, I was like, man, I did a great job on this. He looks so good. I'm excited to play with Hood. Isn't he cool? I'm the best. And then I just destroyed the thing. But you know, a little bit of time and a little bit of perseverance, and I managed to salvage my big old failure. So that was okay. The skin color is just a mixture of different scale paints. So it's a little bit of what did we grab out? It's a little bit of Bosch chestnut and a little bit of harvester flesh, and then I used a little cockrum copper in there as well. And then I just turned it into a wash, and I'm just laying it over the Zenith Prime like we do to make everything kind of go a little quick. And we'll get a little bit on the hair, but we'll kind of be careful. Fill in those eye gaps a little bit, because we're not going to worry about doing fancy eyes here. We'll just come back in and shade those. Okay, so that's pretty good for coat one. again, we'll probably do a secondary coat on this as well. And before our paint dries out, we got a little bit of that black. That's still wet. That's easy to fix. So if you wind up pulling colors that you don't want to into other colors, you can just grab a nice clean brush, go in, clean it up. So we'll be a little more careful here. Going around that edge, pulling that. Notice that we'll have to come back in and fix that in a little bit. Not a big deal. And we'll come into here. So the biggest thing when painting any skin tone, regardless of what it is to know that your base is always white and yellow. And then from there, you add in whatever color you want to get the tones you want. So a really deep ebony skin, you might add in purple. Something like this, you can look for kind of a ruddy, like a reddish brown, like a terracotta would work. But every skin tone, effectively, you can paint with the same base. Everybody's the same. It's just the difference in melanin in our skin that can add these different colors. But at the end of the day, every skin tone is white, yellow, and then black, white, the flat colors for shadows and highlights. And then you just add in other colors that go. Get used to adding in purples and blues and pinks and all kinds of things. Let yourself experiment. There's really not a wrong way to do skin. Dallas says this all the time, so I'm stealing his line. But it is true. If you grab yourself a wet palette or a well palette and just start mixing color and play with it until you feel like it's right, and it's a fantastic way to approach this kind of stuff. And I want to really quick check my reference, I want to get her hair right. So her hair is like a darker brown. Arbuckle's brown is very purple. We could try it though. So we're going to try some Arbuckle brown for the hair because we're cruising right along. 30 minutes left. Yeah, started with greens. Greens and reds are really important. And then obviously green and red like neutralize each other. So it can be really useful to utilize those colors, especially in washes. Oh yeah, that's real purple. I knew Arbuckle's brown was going to be like super purple, and I did it anyway. This kind of like factors into what we're talking about. Like this Arbuckle's brown mixed into kind of your starting white and yellow flesh tone would do really great at making kind of an ebony, like rich, really rich, beautiful skin tone. And especially in the shadows and the shades and stuff. The other thing that you can do with skin tones is always use reference. Go look at all of the different pictures of skin tones on Google and then experiment. Like I said, trying to do stuff out of the pot with skin tones is usually a path to like disappointment, because even when they say like, this is this skin tone and this is that skin tone, it's never quite right. The real way to success, if you want to start making like really beautiful, good-looking skin tones, is to just start playing on the palette and mixing, because everybody's skin is different. Even if you paint the same kind of like overall tone, if it varies from like miniature to miniature, that's actually good, because none of us have the same colors and hues, and how much sun did you get as a child? How did your skin react to ultraviolet light, like burns and things like that? So that slight variation also helps everything look more natural and more real. And it is really enjoyable to just sit there and like be a little creative, like mad scientist, and mix up your colors. And it all starts again from those basic like colors. And there's so many good videos from both miniatures painters and just artists in general that talk about how to mix good skin tones and some of the colors you should think about and how you approach stuff to get warmth or tone or vibrancy, all that stuff. It's one of those places where I think if you just let yourself play more, you'll find a lot more success with it, and you'll have a much more enjoyable time with it, because creating those unique colors is really fun and very exciting. Boop-a-doop-boo. All right, so we're just going to keep on with this. Again, this Arbuckle's brown is like way more purple than I wanted it to be, but we can change that tone with a couple of glazes and maybe like a good thorough brown ink wash and tone it down, and it'll be all good. So I knew right when I pulled it out, I was like, I've used this color before, and it is not brown, it is purple. Makes a really cool leather, though, to be honest. Or if you want a character to have like kind of stylish magenta-y hair, you can definitely do that as well, and it works out pretty well. We got some sloppiness here that we need to clean up, but we can do that. And these are all kind of just the first base coats as we go. Got this little section right here. Call that pretty happy. Great. Okay. Got our hair tones down. Why scale paints? They just happen to be the ones that we have in the office. They have a great range of colors. Their metallics are really great. So we just happen to use them on streams. As we've talked about before, when it comes to our own personal collections, though, we use like everything. So, and I would never tell you to only stick to one paint line. I do really like how the scale paints do, they dilute down really nicely into washes, which of course, as you're seeing here, we do a lot of on the stream over the Zenith Prime, because it's a really great technique to get solid results for the tabletop quickly. And you can do it with literally any paint from any paint line, as long as you have the right ratio of mixing medium and water and all that stuff. But things like Hold Your Blue, really high intensity pigment paints, or like this Decay Black that I'm now using, those kinds of things make the technique work even better. So it is a question of kind of like looking at how these things are working on the palette, and then finding those colors that really lend themselves well to high contrast painting, which is effectively all we're doing here. Is we're just trying to make like really great and fast contrast between our highs and our lows. And the undertone obviously helps us by tinting everything underneath it. And then we can wash in more shadows, more highlights. We could grab our secondary brush if I wasn't talking so much and start like blending out some of this, so that we can get a bit more of that highlighting and that tone. But you can see how now that everything's kind of like broken down, we can come in with that second brush, pick out where we want maybe more of that undertone to show, like over this fold over the leg. And the working time on the wash allows us to kind of pull away certain colors and play a bit more. And if I was doing this off camera and my goal wasn't to try to kind of finish in an hour, I would actually apply the wash a little slower. And as I moved across the different areas of the miniature, I would blend out these colors as well. But you can see like right here where the leg is stretched out, we want more highlights, so I can come in and I can pull that wash a little bit off, and we get this nice contrast that you'll see even more as she dries, because you're going to get, and that's a good note as well. When you do a lot of washing and stuff, you're going to notice that the paints are going to have a much stronger presence when you first apply them, because the water will catch your light source. So it will look really, really heavy. Don't freak out, because as that water evaporates, you're going to start to see the paint actually settle, and it's going to be a lot less intense. So give it time, let it let it kind of like mellow out before you freak out. And if you do go a little too heavy, not the end of the world, a little bit of work on a reclamation, you can just reclaim the highlights a little bit, will totally solve the problem, and you'll never even notice it was there. So painting is largely just about correcting mistake after mistake, quote unquote mistakes, but it's just working with what you get and then coming to a spot where you're happy with that conclusion. And it's also one of the things that makes painting so fun, because it's really hard to replicate exactly what you did before, even with recipes and stuff. How humid was the day? How good was your control? Did you work the paint in a different way? All this stuff will lead to the exact same methodology, resulting in a very different piece of art. And that's why original pieces of art, like we get to make every day when we're doing our hobby together and painting these miniatures, are so valuable, because you can't just make it again. So, who's the best in the office at MCP? Ooh, you're going to start a fight. That's what's going to happen. I don't know. I would probably say if Pagani really applied himself, if old Pagani came out, he would be the best. Because that boy, that's what he does. He comes in and he becomes the best. He'd Rocky montages. He'd be punching core rule books that he'd printed out at Kinko's in probably a closet, because we don't have a freezer here. But you'd hear it. You'd hear that montage. It'd be happening. And then he'd come out and he'd be ready to go. Right now, though, I think I could take him. Like, if he's Rocky Balboa, I am Apollo Creed. I could take him right now, because he's not trained up. He's not ready. He's not ready. But after he spends some time in the meat locker, building up his MCP like stamina, it's over for me. The title of the movie is definitely not. It's not Schick. It's Pagani. So. The 3-box challenge. Somebody asked me about this before, and I had thoughts. So, if I understand correctly, wait, what are we talking about, BK? Are you talking about Pagani in the closet punching core rule books? Because I agree, that would be amazing. Just an hour of that. Well, Simone always wins because she just chooses whatever her dice results are. Nobody can tell her no, because she's the boss. So that's true. There is that. But 3-box challenge-wise, you got to start with the core set, right? So I don't know. I definitely think, just for funsies, I would probably look at characters that I just enjoyed playing more so than anything else, which would probably lead me to things like Taskmaster. Taskmaster is just one of my favorites. I did use him in the May challenge. He was one of the initial that I picked. I could see doing like Avengers and Humans as a split. I think that could work pretty well, especially if I had access to Miss Kamala here. But assuming that we're just talking about like what's currently released, so we'd be looking at like Black Bolt, Medusa, Lockjaw, Crystal, and I'd probably fill out with, that's tough. That's tough. I'd really have to think about that, because you also got to think about like what's going on. So double check and mute it is muted, Tony. I got nothing for you, my friend. Everything is silent over here. Everything. But yeah, 3-box challenge. I'd have to think about that. But I think doing something with Inhumans and then like core set Avengers or maybe Cabal would be the better like option. I think that would be really fun, and it would be enjoyable to paint. I'm always a sucker for the Guardians too. That could be really cool. So that's kind of like my initial inklings, but I'd probably have to put in a lot more like thought into what was going on, unless I'm just picking by what I want to paint, in which case then you have my answer. So I'd probably go in like with Inhumans, because I think they'd be fun to paint again, or Guardians, because I haven't done a whole lot of repainting of those. I've painted a few things. I got to paint a Rocket and a Gamora for the May challenge, which was a blast. We put Gamora in like metallic space armor, which was very cool. Okay, we're just gonna like block out a bit more of this skin tone. And I wanna come over here, hit these a little bit. How much time do we have left? Let's look at the clock. Oh, we got 14 minutes, we're good to go. Oh, Sarah's gonna stand behind Pagani and yell at him to do push-ups. I like this plan already, mostly because I like the idea of Pagani doing push-ups. Well, Sarah yells at him. All right, so where are we at? We just need to do, I think where we're at here is that we got to do the, mask. I want that skin tone to dry a little bit, so let's move to the gold, Victorian brass. We'll start with this old copper color. We're going to do the bangles, and we're going to do the icon on the chest. And we're going to do gold, partially because I don't like my yellow options that I have in front of me right now. So, and I think gold will just look, well, brass, I guess, at this point, because it's the one that I grabbed. Will look nice against that black. So we'll just come in, and we only have 14 minutes, and we want to get her tabletop ready. We're going to do it. Should have changed brushes, but that's why you erase. All right. Yeah, I think that, I mean, the 3-box challenge, I always love, you know, how inventive communities can be with the different formats, and I'll be honest, we might have to like look a bit more into that and make it an official format, because it sounds pretty cool. I'm now realizing as I'm painting Ms. Marvel that I never really gave a thought to why her bangles expand. It must be another Mr. Fantastic like suit thing. It's like, well, here are these specialized bangles because I know, you know, they're part of your heritage and culture, and obviously they have to grow with you. So they're metallic bangles that embiggen along with you. Man thinks of everything, I tells you. All right. So we're just going to knock these out. And then, if we have time and I have something I can use, I don't think I have a brown ink here. So we might just have to pretend that happens. But once the golds are laid down, or the bronzes in this case, I would just go over that and the skin tones and the face with, or the hair with a nice brown ink wash. Maybe a little bit of umber in there, mix everything together, and call that good. So, all right, so let's go in and hit that. Come back through. Yeah, so the for those that are interested, the bangles and the positions she wears them in are part of the culture and how she's unmarried. So, and I will be honest, I don't know the entire like backstory or significance to him, but it has to do with effectively part of her. I think it's her nationality. But everything about this character, and this is part of what makes it really cool, is when you start diving into the design choices. Like I mentioned, the outfit that she wears is based on like Muslim swimwear, I think, or it's either that or it's I think it's her religious swimwear is the specific part for the suit. But all of it is like designed and it has like cultural meaning and significance to her, and it just makes that character even more realistic and awesome and so compelling. Like all of this care was given into it, and I think that's well due to the creative team just being really thoughtful and part of what they were going for in terms of like introducing this character and making her multicultural. In similar veins to like how Miles Morales and stuff introduced his mixed heritage as well. It's very cool, and I love seeing these kind of new characters come out, and then not only kind of fill the space for more representation, but also become super popular because they're so compelling as characters themselves. And to me, that is kind of the magic, again, of getting to work on Marvel in a universe that is always expanding and always making strides in different ways to introduce these new characters, and has become so good at it. And, you know, not every character lands, depending on timing and everything like that, but just because you stumble doesn't mean you stop trying. And, you know, because of that kind of bravery and attempt to go out and tell stories from a different perspective, we can wind up with these amazing characters like Kamala Khan, and we can get to really enjoy learning about cultures and perspectives that might not be our own. And great art, that's what great art does. It creates empathy and understanding and connection. It doesn't divide and pull apart. You know, it's shared experience. And ideally, that's, you know, we talk about this a lot, but that is our goal when making games as well. That's one of our studio mantras, is that we believe in creating experiences that foster shared connection between people and bridge divides through fun, effectively. How many times, you know, in the pre-pandemic world, I can't count the number of people that I met and became connected to at conventions when we knew nothing about each other or anything. I've gone across the Atlantic and met people whose language I can't even speak. And yet we've had the ability to communicate through a shared game that we both play. And that's like, oh my gosh, that's phenomenal. So we should always be looking for that stuff. And we should always view art and everything in that perspective. Like, what is it doing to bring us together? Does it succeed? Not always. But you know, the attempt is there, and if the attempt is there, then I think it's well worth celebrating and really fantastic. Okay. Shablam! How much time do we have left? 2 minutes! My gosh. My gosh. Oh yeah, the burkini. Thank you, chat. That's what it's called. The burkini. I think that I am very happy with where we wound up here. The only thing that I would do in these last 2 minutes, if I had access to it, which I don't, so I'll do it later, would be to do a quick wash over the skin, the hair, and then the bronze, just to add some shadows and shading to it. And then I would probably go back through with a little bit of this Victorian brass, reclaim some of the gold, and just give it some highlights, and then otherwise finish the base. And I would call this a beautifully tabletop-ready pair of Ms. Marvels. So again, done in an hour with 2 characters. If we wanted to go back through, the next things I would do would be to highlight the red, add some spot highlights to the blacks using a blue mix. So I'd go back to my Innsmouth blue and my Decay black and mix up some highlights, and then just kind of build up kind of the contrast on the different areas. But honestly, if once the bases are done on these, if this is what I had to throw on the table for my local game store, I'd be completely happy with these, especially in 1 hour. So again, remember, not everything is destined for the competitive display cabinet. In fact, most things should not be. It's a hobby, have fun with it. Do what makes you happy, get your miniatures painted, and just have a blast and enjoy doing it. That's the important part. Thank you so much for joining me on this last panel stream of the first half of Ministravaganza. I hope you all had fun. I hope you learned some techniques, or at least enjoyed hanging out. We're looking forward to hanging out a ton more with you. We're going to be back at 4 p.m., and we're going to be doing the X-Wing dev and design panel. So if you want to see what's coming up for that game, be sure to check that out. We're going to have a blast. And then we're going to be back with a lot more hobby and a lot more game stuff. So many things to do over the course of this next 2.5 days now. Until then, enjoy the break. We'll be on intermission. We're going to grab some food. We'll be back, hang out more with you. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much, and goodbye.